Xbox really needs to just nail this, and I really hope they do. Hey guys, this is Jesse with Game Infinite. We're going to be doing a full live reaction to the Xbox business update that has been the talk of the town for the last 2 weeks and on social media and the entire gaming world on the Twitterverse. I wanted to do kind of an early reaction, like an early my thoughts on the topic before, but I didn't get a chance to do this. So I'm just going to do a quick version before we get to the reaction and watch this together. For the last 2 weeks, the Twitterverse and rumor mill has been nothing filled with this narrative. Xbox is giving up. Xbox going third party. Xbox isn't going to make Xboxes anymore. Xbox is losing the console war. They're throwing in the towel. The fall of Xbox. And that's been the narrative. That's what a lot of people have been frantically, even Xbox fans. And I'm a diehard Xbox fan. I love Xbox. I have been an Xbox fan from day one. Yes, I have a PlayStation. Yes, I have a Nintendo Switch. Yes, I have PC. But Xbox is my favorite. And that just goes back to the 360, playing Halo 3 as a little kid gamer. And I just have not understood this narrative. And it just tells me that Xbox, as much as I love Xbox, they really suck at one thing, in my opinion. They suck at selling consumer-friendly practices to the consumers. This is not the first time they've done this, where there's just they really struggle to get the narrative within gaming to talk about Xbox is doing this great thing, the other guy should do this too. And that's just never been the narrative. I think back to when the new generation consoles came out, Xbox really took a consumer-friendly practice with smart delivery, bridging the previous and future generation, making those games easily accessible without paid updates. It was just so streamlined and so consumer-friendly that it wasn't nearly as good on PlayStation. And the other one I think of is when they announced backwards compatibility. The Xbox Series X is the first console to have not just one but 2 generations of backwards compatibility, and that is unheard of and unprecedented. They continue to do things that are more and more consumer friendly. Are they perfect? No, they're still a big corporation. They do stuff, but they're doing consumer friendly things, and yet the narrative is always Xbox is losing. Xbox is. It doesn't make any sense to me that literally for the last 2 weeks, the rumors have been that Xbox will be ending exclusivity in some form. For those of you who don't know, that's basically that's the 2-second version of what the last 2 weeks have been about Xbox. Some form of going third party or bringing certain games to PlayStation. And I do have a theory. I have a theory that they backpedaled on their plan when they saw the blowback. This is not the first time they've done this. I think all the way back to the Xbox One, they backpedaled a lot of plans due to negative feedback. I think, but that's because they weren't in front of the narrative. If they were to truly end exclusivity, that would be a good thing. And I say that as an Xbox gamer, because exclusivity benefits the companies, not the gamers. I mentioned I have all 4 platforms. The reason I have all 4 platforms is because of game exclusivity. If exclusivity did not exist across all the platforms, gamers would have true player choice. They wouldn't be forced to pick up hardware simply because they want to play certain games. That isn't how it works in any other, it doesn't work in the tech industry like that. You can choose what phone you want, and it doesn't matter what apps you can use for the most part. There's a lack of that concept in other industries, where this is the only industry where, if you think about it, imagine if Netflix was only available on Samsung phones, or imagine if Facebook was only on iPhone. It's so crazy to us because the tech industry doesn't work that way for the most part. There are exceptions, but in the gaming world, it is the exact opposite. The fact that I have to have 4 different pieces of gaming hardware all just to play games. It's crazy. I've never been a fan of exclusivity. I don't think it benefits gamers at all. And if they wanted to move the needle on ending that, I'd be all for that. The problem is Xbox is losing in terms of market share. So people do think that would hurt them. Doing something that's inherently consumer friendly, something that is designed to sell consoles, may not be a smart business move on paper, but consumer-friendly practices act as X factors. They can move the needle in other ways. If they could sell it, you see, the key to success here that Xbox has struggled to understand is you need to get gamers to understand why this benefits them. If they could pull that off, get the narrative to be well, Xbox does this. Why doesn't PlayStation? Why doesn't Nintendo Switch? And I even had an idea that I think they were planning to do more. I think they're I know I've heard a little bit of leaks since this came out. I'm doing this a couple hours late. I think they backpedaled their plans. If I had to guess, I think they were planning to be more aggressive with ending this, but there was so much chaos over the last 2 weeks that they had to backpedal. I think they backpedaled, but I could be wrong. But if they could sell this, get gamers to understand that exclusivity is bad for gamers and get gamers to demand this, all of a sudden, and this is the perfect time to do it too, because PlayStation isn't going to have a major first-party game on their platform for like a year and a half. So this is like the perfect time to bring up the topic of exclusivity, and Xbox could be like, they could spin it as like they're making the first step, like we're gonna bring these games to these consoles and we want to invite Sony and Nintendo to do the same, and like they could really control this narrative, and they're just not. They were letting the Twitterverse rule it for 2 weeks. If I was in charge of Xbox, not only would I really want to try to control this narrative, get gamers thinking that exclusivity is a bad thing, get on the Xbox, in the Xbox fandom too, get gamers really banging that drum and demanding that from Nintendo and PlayStation as well. But the other thing too is I would, if I really was in charge, one thing that I would want Xbox to do would be to approach one of these other companies. I don't think Sony would ever go for it, but going towards Nintendo I think would be more successful, but I don't know. But here's how I think the end to exclusivity could really truly happen, is if they first kicked it off by proposing a trade. If Xbox signed a deal with Nintendo to trade 3 or 4 IPs, and what I mean by that is basically we're going to promise to bring Halo, Gears, Starfield, whatever to Nintendo, and they promise to bring Mario, Zelda, whatever to Xbox. That would be historic. It would put the third one out in a precarious position, because I think this is a way that ending exclusivity could actually sell consoles. Because if you're a gamer, you're like, oh, well, if I get an Xbox, I can also get Nintendo games. Or if I have a Nintendo Switch, I'm also getting these Xbox games. Why would I want a PlayStation? Doing that now, especially when we're not going to get a good first-party major PlayStation IP for a year and a half, 2 years, this is the time to do that. And I think that would be historic, but I might be thinking way too big. I don't know. I just want to get to this reaction. I don't want to talk too long. All right, here we go.
I'm your host, Tina Amini, and we have a very special episode today, as you can probably tell by the fact that I'm joined by Phil,
Really
Sarah,
loud.
and Matt. Welcome. And we're going to talk about some updates at Xbox. We want to talk about game exclusivity. We want to talk about Activision Blizzard, now that they're part of our portfolio, how that might be an impact on
I'm not going to talk too much because I want to hear what they're saying, but I might
interject
interject a little bit.
into the strategy at Xbox. So where should we start, Phil?
Well, when we originally had planned for the show, starting back in December, I think we probably would have started with Activision Blizzard, maybe talked a little bit about the exclusivity with some of the news coming up, and then hardware. But we've had some unforeseen news that has come out, so let's just go and
basically he's talking about the 2 weeks of rumors,
because I know it's on the minds of a lot of people. We hear from the community, and that's an important input for us. So we made the decision that we're going to take 4 games to the other consoles, just 4 games. Not a change to our kind of fundamental exclusive strategy. It is.
I don't believe them. I think they were planning bigger and they backpedaled. I think that's what happened, but I could be wrong.
We make every decision really with the long-term health of Xbox in mind. And long-term health of Xbox means a growing platform, our games performing, building the best platform for creators, reaching as many players as we can. We're always looking to learn as a leadership team and to grow. And we think this is an interesting point in time for us to use what some of the other platforms have right now to help grow our franchises. So we're going to do that.
So these 4 titles, what are they? Can you say?
I'm not going to name those games. The teams that are building those games have announced plans that are not too far away. As we know, game teams put a lot of energy into their announcements with the partners. So I don't want to take anything away from those teams. So I won't be talking about the titles specifically, but I think when they come out, it'll make sense.
Can we say if either of those titles are Starfield or Indiana Jones?
They are not Starfield or Indiana Jones.
So that was the one
What
thing
was
I
the
had spoiled for me ahead of time, was
criteria
that was
and
the
how
rumor
team was
that those
thinking
two
about
games were
selecting
also
those four
coming. And
titles?
Let me start a little bit
again, I
outside of
think
that,
they
then I'll get to
backpedaled
the
their plans.
more
I think they were
specific
planning to go
games that we're
bigger,
talking about
but
right now.
and they saw
Because the fundamental
the
decision
firestorm
driver for
that was
any
on
decision
Twitter and
that
the
we
social
make,
medias, but
anything we're going
I
to
could be
talk
wrong.
about today is the long-term health of Xbox. That we're running a growing platform that is reaching more players, that our games are having as much success as possible. And I do have a fundamental belief that over the next 5 or 10 years, exclusive games that are exclusive to one piece of hardware, are going to be a smaller and smaller part of the game industry. And that's not some
and I agree with that. That's how it
great
should
insight.
be.
Look at the last 10
Exclusivity needs to
years
get phased out and
what
go
the
away.
biggest games are today. It's a natural place, whether it's one console and PC, multiple consoles, mobile console and PC. You see big games landing on multiple platforms, and we want to be a great platform for creators that are.
And they have been. They've been leading that charge, and
But now back to the specifics of the question.
they've been better on
these
exclusivity than most.
four specific titles. We looked at games that are over a year old, so they've been on Xbox and
okay,
PC
so these are all
for a
old
while.
games.
A couple of the games are community-driven games, new games that kind of first iterations of a franchise that have reached their full potential, let's say on Xbox and PC. There's always growth. Franchises that we obviously want to continue to invest in. Part of having the ability to continue to invest is that the businesses behind those franchises continue. We think it's important that these service-based games that have communities behind them, that they can have confidence that they're going to exist in the future. So two of them, kind of community-driven games that will end up on other platforms and give us the ability to continue to invest in them.
Okay, so some of the rumors were Sea of Thieves. I bet that's one of those.
More players to play with. I'd say two of the other games are smaller games that
Hi-Fi Rush.
were never really meant to be built as kind of platform exclusives and all the fanfare that goes around that. But games that our teams really wanted to go build, that we love supporting creative endeavors across our studios, regardless of size. And as they've realized their full potential on Xbox and PC, we see an opportunity to utilize the other platforms as a place to just drive more business value out of those games, allowing us to invest in maybe future iterations of those, so sequels to those, or just other games like that in our portfolio. And when we don't damage Xbox and we can grow our business using what other platforms have and to help us with that, we're going to do that. And that's really the story behind.
This is another reason why I
these
think they
four games.
backpedaled.
And,
Is if
last
this
thing I'll
was
say,
simply
looking
4 old
forward,
games coming to
you know, I think
PlayStation, I don't think they would have
there is
waited
an
2
interesting
weeks
story for us of
and just letting
introducing Xbox
social media be on
franchises to
fire about
players
the subject,
on
YouTube be
other
on fire.
platforms to get them more.
I think they were
interested
planning to go
in
a little bit
Xbox.
bigger than
We
4
think
older
there's a
games,
good
in my opinion.
brand
That's the only
value
explanation for
Xbox
this.
there. So 4 games.
All we got
no
was a
promise
tweet for
beyond
him
that.
for
So if
like
you're on
2
those other
weeks.
platforms and you see these
They
4
made us
games
wait
coming,
for
please
this.
don't take
If
it
it
as
was
some signal
if it was
that
4 games,
everything's
they could have
coming.
they
It's
could have
not.
done this a week ago.
And we're going to learn.
So when you are thinking about the future and this concept of live service games, games
It's
that
okay
can
if they
benefit from
backpedaled.
bigger
I get it. People maybe
audiences,
just
new
aren't ready for it.
audiences, how does that apply to future titles and how you're applying that criteria there?
Yeah, there's really no fundamental change to how we think about exclusivity. We just came out of Developer Direct, which was an awesome show, where we showed great games that are coming to Xbox and PC and cloud, which really makes them accessible to hundreds of millions of people. So it's this kind of, we're really focused on a couple platforms and what's going to show up there. But our key of play the games you want with the people you want, anywhere you want, when everybody plays, we all win.
I love how they
These have been
purposely
part of our
never mention
strategy
the other
for
guys. They
years,
don't
and
say
will
Nintendo
continue
or
to be.
PlayStation.
Our
They just say
focus is
other
on
platforms.
how do we continue to grow
Like-
the games industry by reaching more players.
Like,
in
we
more
all know what you're
places,
saying. You can
and
just
how
say
do we
it.
grow
Like,
Xbox as part of that? Xbox is a hardware platform. Xbox is a publisher of great games, and Xbox as a platform for the world's best creators.
And then knowing that, how do we think about our first party games and Game Pass?
Yeah, well, to build
I will say this is somewhat of an
what
unusual
Phil just said,
format.
one thing
Like,
I
it's a
would add,
podcast.
when you were talking
They're
about
just sitting around
growth,
talking.
It's
Yeah.
just that
It's so-
we've sort of seen this
I don't know.
inversion over the last 5 years.
Not how I would have
where
expected
it
this
used to be
announcement.
that the platforms
Another
would
reason why I don't think it was
and
originally
the
just 4
games
old
would sort of
games.
tuck in
I think it
within
was
the
originally going to be
platform.
bigger, and they
Today,
backpedaled.
Big games like a Roblox or a Fortnite could actually be bigger than any one platform. And that really has changed the way that we think about things. So in the midst of all that, I think we at First Party can come back to sort of some core principles. first, that all of our games will be on the Xbox platform. Second, all of our games will go into Game Pass on day one. And third, we know that Game Pass will only be available on Xbox. So there's sort of starting points for us.
Okay,
as Phil
so Game
mentioned,
Pass ain't moving
there are
anywhere.
games today that you can play that only can be found on Xbox. And at the same time, we want to bring more of our games to more players. So we're going to continue to look at that. Kind of moving aside, though, from some of those and thinking more about what does it really mean for the player, to me, the two key things are cross-play and cross-save. Those things allow us to deliver on the promise of Xbox, which is play with your friends where they are, play on the devices you want, play the games you want. So that is really only possible at a practical level when you know that your saves and your player are going to be able to move across all those parts. So not all of our games today are necessarily built to take advantage of that. There still will be some games that don't. As we bring more teams into the Xbox family, there's some catch up to do as we get there. But that cross-play, cross-save is like so fundamental to what we're doing, and I think as
Cross-play and cross-save
party
needs
get
to
such a
be
good
a
benefit
standard,
from being
industry
so close to the
standard, and if
platform.
games
Yeah,
don't support
absolutely, and
that,
that's one of the
gamers
things, like
need
you
to
said,
not
all
support
of
the
our
game,
games
period.
are always in Game Pass.
And we need to
so
demand
I'm
other
excited to
platforms do
announce,
more and do
with the
that.
coming together that we had with Activision Blizzard King, that Activision
Games
and
should
Blizzard
not be
games are
trapped on the
coming to Game
console.
Pass, starting with Diablo 4 on March 28th, which
There are
I'm
games still
super
launching
excited to share
today that when
And
they
it's all
launch,
part
they're
of our
trapped on a
commitment
particular
to make
console.
the Xbox experience and the games that we build as widely available as possible. So now the 34 million Game Pass members can all enjoy the fantastic experience of Diablo 4.
Amazing. Can we come back to the point, Phil, you mentioned at the top, this isn't really a change in strategy for us. Can you recap for me how it isn't?
Yeah, and I thought both Matt and Sarah did a really nice job of talking about what we're doing on Xbox.
Man, we're only
where
9
we're
minutes into
going.
this video, and so far
You know,
I'm just
if you take a platform feature like Xbox
like
Play
I'm an
Anywhere,
Xbox fan, and this
which
is
has
I
been
keep
a
saying
promise
this. You
that
all might
we've
be
made
tired
on
of
our
me
first
saying
party
this. That's why I
games,
think
that
they
you buy our
backpedaled
game
this.
once, you're going to play
This
across
isn't worth a
Xbox
22-minute
Windows. I
podcast.
think we're the only platform that
This
does
is one of those. This could have been an
that makes
email,
it possible
Phil.
for you not only to play
If
with your
anything,
friends
just
wherever they
the
are,
2
but
weeks
to
of
know that you actually
Firestorm
have
could have been
multiple
avoided if this
entitlements
had
to
been
the
a
game.
tweet.
I think that's a
2 weeks ago.
technology I'd love to see.
We're
applied
not
to
changing
more
strategies.
platforms.
We're not doing this.
But it is
We're just
this
bringing these 4
view
unspecified games.
that
No, it's
people
not
are gonna play
Starfield.
Xbox
This could have been a
in
Twitter
multiple
post.
places. Whether it's play the games you want.
Don't
with
get me
people
wrong.
you
I like
want, anywhere
listening
you want,
to Phil,
whether
and I like
it's
them talking about
content
Xbox and all that stuff. But
whether it's when everybody
unless you're
plays
trying to
the
radically
ultimate,
change
like,
the
we've had
industry for the
different
better or
taglines, different
convince others why
strategies,
something's good,
kind of
this
words
video so
that
far
we've
is
used, but
summarized in, yeah,
always
we're
with
bringing
this
4 old
view
games to PlayStation or
that
Switch.
Xbox
Big
is
whoop.
a
That could have been a
platform
Twitter.
for
That
creators
post.
who
Like,
want to reach the most players. Our
I'm a little
investments in
disappointed.
xCloud, our investments in franchises like Minecraft and now Call of Duty and other large franchises.
I mean,
so that we
in one
learn
way, I'm
how to
relieved
build those.
because I don't think
This
they
has
were
been
going
a
to pull it
strategy
off.
that
If
we've
they
been
did
on
what I
for,
thought
I'd
they were
say,
going to
a
do, I didn't think
decade.
they were going to pull it off.
It's not
And I think
about
they
one
saw they weren't going to
device.
pull it off and
It's not
backpedaled.
about games in service of a device, but rather the devices that people want to play on should be in service of making the games as big and popular as they possibly could be. Because really, a healthy creator community on Xbox,
Service-based games should be multi-platform, period. I don't care who made
is the
them.
thing that
I
all
made
of
the
us
same
as
point
game
about Foam
players
Stars.
should be
I'm
working
worried
for,
about it
because
being
that's the
like
thing that will lead
PlayStation
to the best
exclusive.
long-term
We've
success and
seen
growth in this industry.
several
And my understanding just
platform
from listening and
exclusive
learning
live
from
service
you
games
three
fail
over the past few weeks, just
in just the last
understanding what's
year.
happening with Xbox is that we see trends with player behavior where people are playing on multiple devices. That is the reality. And we have put some games out on multiple platforms before. So my understanding is that that's been good for players. How does that come back to the business with all of that in mind?
Yeah, as you said, we have shipped games on other platforms. In fact, realistically, if you look with the addition of Activision and Blizzard and ZeniMax, we're one of the largest game publishers on PlayStation. We're one of the largest publishers on the Nintendo Switch, especially when you put Minecraft into the equation as well. And now we're one of the largest publishers on mobile platforms as well. And that's not something that we want to back away from. We want to continue to be building great games.
He makes a good point. They've made so many large acquisitions that now they
can
have
play those
some
games where
huge
they
games on
wanna
other
go
platforms
play.
under their umbrella.
But we do understand
fair
the
point.
business success that Xbox has
So
to have.
all the more reason why I
Us as
think the
leaders
news
in
that
this
4
business,
old games are coming
the
to other
system
platforms
today, the
isn't
system that all companies that
like
we
they
play
have a
video
dozen
from
other
is
big
a world of you gotta
games
be
on
growing
other
your
platforms
business.
at this point.
Growth in our Xbox business is critical to the long-term health of Xbox. Many people know I've been on Xbox for over 20 years, and I want to make sure Xbox is in the best position for the next 20 years. That means healthy player community, healthy creator community, and healthy business. So when we look at opportunities to allow more people to play, more people to engage, more people to buy, more people to subscribe, it's all about putting Xbox in the best position. And our hardware is a critical component of that. The absolute best experience somebody has on Xbox is hardware that your team builds and that people play on. But that's not going to be everybody. We fully accepted that we're going to have Xbox players across all kinds of devices.
So I think a lot of people think about 2023 as this incredible year for gaming. And in a lot of ways it was. There was some really amazing releases that I think we all enjoyed. But what were the signals behind the scenes that maybe indicated how we wanted to look at the future of Xbox and how we kind of keep up with the industry?
Yeah, such a good question. And I think it's, as people who care about the industry, which I assume is people who are watching this, it was an amazing year. Some great launches, some of the games that I think will stand the test of time and people will be talking about a decade from now. But it's an industry that didn't really grow. And what happens when an industry doesn't grow? You end up with some job eliminations, which we had. We had even our own hard decisions to make about building a sustainable business for ourselves.
Don't downplay it, man. You got to admit it. You guys just fired like 1,800 people. You gotta own that. Don't say some. Don't make it like, yeah, some job eliminations. No. Come on, man. Just say a lot. A lot of big companies fired a lot of people. Those are people with lives and jobs.
And that really is down to being part of an industry that is growing. If you listen to Lisa Su, the AMD CEO,
you can't spend
AMD-powered consoles are likely to
$65 billion
in 2024.
and then fire 1,800 people and just be like, yeah, the industry didn't grow. You guys had the money.
Growing as an industry, the industry will struggle.
I love Xbox. I'm a big Xbox fan, but I don't.
Do you say I have a fixed number of players?
Frivolous layoffs when there's obviously money to be had. I don't like that.
To monetize those players to get
I
more
can't
money
support that.
from the players that I have? Or do you think about how do I expand the business I have by finding new players and adding those to the base of players that already play? Our focus on Xbox for the last decade has really been on that latter point of how do we make sure Xbox is growing for our players, growing for our creators, so those people are finding success on our platform, which will grow the Xbox business and put Xbox in a position to be very strong for years and decades to come.
Matt, earlier you were talking about these growing gaming communities, how they're incredibly large and comparable on such a different level when we think about console audiences. Like you mentioned Roblox, you mentioned Fortnite. So how are we're obviously thinking about our responsibility, our hardware responsibility is supporting the growth of gaming communities. How has that actually shown up for the players? Are there other games we can speak to from our portfolio?
Well, as Phil mentioned, I mean, two of the biggest ones for us, Call of Duty and Minecraft, I mean, they are driven just from the bottom up by the communities of people that play those games, which is so great. I think about it, for the player community, it comes down to where are the friends, where are the people you play with, and then equally important is where have you built up your library of games, right? Where have you invested? Where's that library? I think those two things probably are some of the biggest influences on where people choose to play and what devices they choose to play.
Yeah.
When we think about, on the other side, the developer side, just any game developer wants their game to find the biggest audience possible. That's just the nature of building a game. You want people to enjoy and participate in what you've made. And I think we're in a unique position to deliver on that just because we are the platform. We build hardware, we've got a first-party games group, and then we've got a system that ties that together, that brings together your friends, your progression, your achievements, all of that. And I think that's really what has contributed to the momentum behind some of these communities.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you look at, just step back and you look at the history of the industry, we've moved from a place where it used to be that someone built and launched a game to accelerate hardware to actually the things we do with our hardware and with our platform are all in service of making those games bigger. And we think about that across all of the investments we make, the consoles we build, the investments we do with things like cross-play, cross-progression, the things that we're doing with cloud. How do we actually give more options to game creators so they can have the greatest success? I think one of the fun recent examples about this is actually Palworld. You know, Palworld was able to launch, they were a game preview, they launched in Game Pass, they also simultaneously...
I'm going to pause that real quick. I don't... maybe I should rewatch what she just said, but like I don't know if I 100% agree with, like, I get what she's talking about, but consoles have always been built to sell games. Like, consoles have been sold at a loss or at cost for a long time. Like, they've always been to sell games. Like, the way they made it seems like, well, we used to make games to sell hardware. No, not really. I mean, yeah, they want to sell consoles, but the reason consoles are so inexpensive compared to gaming PCs is that they're designed to sell games. Games are where the profit is. I don't know. I mean, that was kind of an interesting take. She was like, in the past, games were designed to push hardware, and now we build this hardware platform to support games. And it's like, I feel like it's kind of always been that way. I mean, I could be wrong, but I feel like that's just incorrect. But I digress. Let's keep watching.
So the combination of those things, Pocket Pair was able to have this outsized success, and it was the largest third-party Game Pass launch ever. And that's all because we give creators options on how they can launch their games. We've got subscription, we've got retail, we've got
I get what she's talking about, like how there's so many more platforms of support now. You have Game Pass, you have this huge lack of barrier to entry, you have cloud, you have multi-platform stuff, you have day one on PC as well. Like, I get what she's alluding to.
The highest level of users on console, the highest level of users on PC, the highest
But at the end of the day, it's always to sell
cloud,
games, not to sell consoles.
We have double-digit growth rate on PC and cloud, places where we're enabling creators to actually reach new players beyond the console ecosystem. And that's why we're leaning into it and doing more, because we see all those signals.
So we're talking about the role that hardware plays for creators, for the games and those communities. What about the role that hardware plays for us as a business, for Xbox?
When we look at our hardware, it really is, and Phil said this earlier, it's where you get like the most flagship seminal experience of Xbox. And it also represents a developer target. Our developers can build the specs of our hardware, and we invest to make sure they know when they do that the games are going to go great on our hardware, but they're also going to be able to be accessed across any screen because of all the other investments we make. So
locked at 30 frames per second for Redfall and Starfield.
As many players as possible. And we actually have more creators right now building for Xbox than ever before, thousands of them, by nature of those investments. And we got more to come. There's some exciting stuff coming out in hardware that we're going to share this holiday. And we're also invested in the next generation roadmap. And what we're really focused on there is delivering the largest technical leap you will have ever seen.
I really want them to make it portable,
which makes it better for players.
Give me some
and
type
better
of
for creators
handheld.
And the visions that they're building.
And then when we're talking about hardware too, there's these other considerations that are really important to our community, probably to each one of ourselves as well.
You can make a streaming-only version that's cheaper, and you can make a Steam Deck version that has a processor.
I want to dig in on that a little bit more. As we talk about cloud in the wider entertainment industry, there's conversations about streaming.
That's my one fear, is if they did make one, it would be cloud-focused.
How I own my content that I've invested in. So what can we say about our stance around game preservation?
Yeah. One of the highlights for me of being in this position was getting to stand on stage when we announced back compat coming to Xbox One.
I remember
fantastic.
that.
People were reading the teleprompter before I could read it. Slow reader, and just feeling the energy in the auditorium as we were saying that.
This should feel like that moment.
Cues, I think, us as being part of Microsoft,
but they failed to sell people on, and they let people control the narrative.
And how Windows over decades has maintained software compatibility with things that are built on it. Like, I can still go back and play some of the games that I love playing on Windows from decades ago, and it will still run. And we try to bring that same view to consoles. It's harder in console because the line between what the hardware is and what the game is in consoles is traditionally, it's tighter, which makes compatibility, you end up doing these generational compatibilities that we've built. But I will say compatibility, the ability to not only play the games, but my saves are still there with our cloud save systems to try to keep the services up as long as we can so that people can play, is a tenet of what we are as Xbox. It's at our foundation. And when we look at future hardware generations and what we're going to support, making sure that we respect, which is the word I use, respect the investments that people have made in Xbox going forward is fundamental. And the fact that you get entitlements when you buy a game from us on both Windows and Xbox also means you have the ability to play that game across a multitude of devices, which I think furthers the compatibility of the games that you own.
Can we go back to what Xbox stands for today? I think we've pretty much covered all of the elements, but if you could break it down for me.
Okay, we got 2 minutes left in this video.
When you play on Xbox, what we're saying is you're playing on a platform where you know the biggest games in the world are always going to be. You're playing on a platform where you get to access Game Pass. And all of the games from our incredible range of studios will always launch in Game Pass day one. And you're playing on a platform
except
that's
for when they
dedicated
do
to you, like
special editions that launch with early access. I need to write a whole article about that, how I feel like they've kind of broken the day one promise a couple times with games that have launched like a week early, but only if you buy them.
Investments that we make in cloud gaming.
Like,
and so you're playing somewhere where you're investing.
they're like, well, it's not launching on day one, it's day -7.
And across
it's like
all of the screens where you are. And I think most importantly, Xbox is a place where you know when you're investing in Xbox, you're investing somewhere.
For me, day one should be day one, and that should be
games more successful.
It should be
creators
play it day one with the deluxe edition and Game Pass, and then you can get the standard. I don't know.
Yeah, just that
they need to
investment
fix
in the
that. I don't like
studios is so, and
that
we
Game
feel
Pass
that as part of
players
first party
aren't
with the
actually
platform
getting the
proximity.
game
You know, it's
as the
kind
same
of
as
amazing
buying
now to
players
look out
in some
across all the
instances,
studios
even
we've
if it is
got
just a few days. I
and
think it kind of
just be
breaks the
reminded
spirit of
that
that
we're now one
promise.
of the biggest
But that's
development
a discussion for another
organizations
video,
in the
another
industry.
article.
What does that mean for players? It means that the biggest games are going to continue to come to Xbox. And this 2024, the year coming up, we've got more than 10 major releases coming up. Great stuff. Hellblade 2. We've got Diablo expansion. We've got Avowed, Ara, the Indiana Jones game. And there's more in development, which I think we're going to be able to share more about at our June showcase coming up pretty soon.
Well, I guess I should get ready to work on that show. Well, thank you all for showing up on the podcast today, and we'll see the rest of you this June.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tina.
Thank you.
Let's talk about that for a minute. I'm not gonna take too long to talk about that, but because I think I've said everything I've think about this, but I'm gonna wrap it up with this. I don't think there's any chance. I mean, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Whatever. This is one of my guts telling me. I think Xbox wanted to try to swing for the fence, do a big push towards bringing down exclusivity in one big historic moment, and they saw how much flurry there was, how much fire there was on Twitter, on YouTube, people making these Fall of Rome videos on YouTube, and they backpedaled. They picked 4 old games that people aren't really going to care if they show up on Switch or PlayStation. I think that is to me the explanation for this. This is a 22-minute podcast where they really don't share anything new. There is no business update. That's why I think they backpedaled. They call this a update on the Xbox business, but Phil himself says it's not a change of strategy. We're just bringing these 4 games. So I'm like, then don't call it an update on business, Phil. Like, I mean, think about that, folks. They literally say in this video, we're not changing strategy. So how is this an update? An update implies change. He makes the case that we already have 24 games on other platforms. This is just 4 more. What's the big deal? Then why is this a 22-minute podcast? I am convinced, I'm putting my tinfoil hat on, I am convinced they were planning to go bigger. There were too many leaks, too many rumors talking about Starfield and Indiana Jones coming to PlayStation. I'm convinced that was the original plan. That they were going to announce today that Indiana Jones and because she brought that up. She named those 2 games for a reason, because I think that was the original plan. They were going to announce, and they changed it last minute when they saw that everybody was up in arms, calling it the end of Xbox, and I think they were afraid that this was going to backfire on them. And this is where I'm super torn. On one hand, I don't think they were going to pull it off. I don't think they had sold it right. I don't think they were controlling the narrative. People were not talking about what they should have been talking about. So on one hand, I'm kind of relieved. As an Xbox fan, I'm like, okay, they saw the backlash, they saw the people overreacting, they saw the Fall of Rome YouTube videos, and they're like, oh, people don't like this, we're not going to do it. They learned from Xbox One. Because this is not the first time Xbox announced something that was incredibly unpopular at the time and had to backpedal afterwards. And it cost them a console generation. I am convinced that their failure to sell the innovations of the Xbox One cost them that generation. I'm convinced of it, even because they backpedaled on everything and they still lost. I think they just scared too many people. And what's crazy about that is, I've said this before, but I'll say it in this video. I admit that I think, myself included, a lot of us were wrong on what the Xbox One originally could have done. The original Xbox One was this futuristic device that we were all scared of. They were like, well, it had to be connected to the internet. So, like, my Xbox Series X is always on the internet. It's always connected. And half the games we play now are always online anyways. I'm just not afraid of an always online device because half my games need an update when I go to play. Half of them, like, I feel like it arrived here anyways, but we didn't get any of the benefits. The Xbox One would have had it to where I could have I love physical games, but the convenience of digital library is really nice. You don't have to switch discs all the time. The Xbox One was going to give us both. And I was like, that was a great idea. The fact that I could have my physical library, all my steel books, but then I don't have to swap discs every time, that was fantastic. The ability to share games with friends, like you and your buddy could go like half on different games. There were so many cool ideas that they scared us. And ultimately, it was also this future device that you could talk to and ask it to do things. And we were all afraid of that because no one had an Alexa or a HomePod in their house at the time. Like, even the phones back then weren't listening for commands. It was just there was a lot of good ideas that scared people. And they lost the console generation because they failed to sell it. And I think this is one where exclusivity needs to end. I think that would be good for gamers. I think it would also be good for innovation, because I do think that, and this is just me as a all gamer fan, I think that PlayStation and Nintendo are getting soft. They're getting complacent. They're getting to a point where they know they have a few games that sell consoles, and they're not brave enough to bring those games to other platforms because they know that those games are selling their consoles. If exclusivity ended, imagine the innovation that would have to step up in its place from a hardware standpoint. I don't think PlayStation would have been able to get away with an 800 gigabyte next-gen console if it wasn't for exclusivity. If PlayStation and Nintendo didn't have exclusive games, if somehow that had become so unpopular in the gaming world that they couldn't get away with it, they would have to make up for it. Like, let's pick on Nintendo for a minute. Nintendo Switch in 2024 is garbage. It is inexcusable that they haven't updated at least the processor in the last couple of years. When they updated the OLED model, they stuck an ancient asthmatic processor in that Switch and sold it at a premium. I hate playing games on it because they look so terrible. And there's no 4K upscaling, so when I dock it to my TV, which is where I played my Switch 90% of the time anyways, it looks terrible on a 4K TV. You have these tiny pixelated games being stretched over a giant 4K image. It looks even worse on the television. If they didn't have Mario to fall back on, if PlayStation didn't have The Last of Us and God of War to sell their hardware, they would have to do better with the hardware. This isn't even just about consumer choice, because a lot of us might still pick all of the different platforms just because we're so used to it, even if we didn't have to. And this is another reason why I think they backpedal, because even you could see it in the way Phil was talking about how exclusivity needs to end. And I think he kind of wants to do it, but he's just afraid. He saw the backlash. He's probably having flashbacks to the Xbox One. Gamers aren't ready for this, and people were already running around like Xbox was collapsing, when in reality they were trying to announce something that would have benefited us. But I think it's the fact that PlayStation and Nintendo know that they don't have to do it, because that's not the narrative. Gamers are not demanding the end of exclusivity. In fact, if you look at Twitter, you see gamers wanting more of it because they're so infatuated with this war that doesn't exist. Xbox fans do not benefit with Xbox exclusives. Xbox does. PlayStation fans do not benefit with exclusives. PlayStation does. So I don't understand why gamers want exclusivity. It doesn't benefit us. So I was really hoping Xbox would take that first step in ending exclusivity and kind of announcing that we're going to be phasing that out and getting rid of it. And I think the way to do that successfully would be to partner up with one of the other two, because then that would sell consoles. Because if two of the three weren't doing exclusivity, that would actually incentivize you to want to buy one of their consoles rather than the one that, I don't know. I'm a little disappointed because I wanted them to do more. I do not think this was their original plan. You cannot call this a business update if there is no update to the business. Literally feels like this is business as usual. We just bring in 4 games that I can't even tell you about. So, like, what's the news? This was a 22-minute video with no news. So I think this is my prediction, and I don't know, I could be wrong. I think the original plan was they were bringing Starfield and Indiana Jones to PlayStation. Hi-Fi Rush to Nintendo Switch, we knew about that. And they were going to be announcing that over the next, months, years, they're going to be basically phasing out exclusivity, and really tried to hammer this play on all the screens thing, which I would have been 110% for if they could sell it to gamers as to why this is a good thing, and such a good thing that they should be demanding it from the other two. Because in the future, we should see, we have God of War on PC. We have God of War on PC. There needs to be a future where there's Mario on Xbox and Halo on PlayStation. That should be the future, because that is true of the entertainment industry, and that is true of the music industry. Every other entertainment industry benefits for consumers when exclusivity is gone, and I think this streaming services are a perfect example in that industry. Streaming services are hurting consumers with exclusivity, slowly creeping more and more in. They're going backwards. We're trying to go forwards. I don't know. Tell me what you guys think. I don't want this to go too long. It was mostly meant to be a reaction. I'm a little disappointed, but also a little relieved. I don't want Xbox to fail. I think they were going to do something, and then they decided to backpedal when they saw the backlash. But I think the future is exclusive free. But tell me what you guys think in the comments. Do you think I'm completely wrong? Do you love the console wars? Do you love hating on the other side? Do you think I'm an abomination for owning all 4? Tell me what you guys think. Do you think I'm right? Do you think they backpedaled and changed their strategy last minute? Or do you think this was their plan all along and they don't know what the word update means? I don't know. I'll see you guys on the next Game Infinite video.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no, I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up, it's time to look at the enemy.